This is Milo's town. 3 weeks ago, it didn't exist. Neither did most of these friendships. On the first cool morning of the new school year, a moving truck rolled in at the far end of Maple Lane. Nobody thought much of it, except for the boy climbing out of the car behind it, hugging a small tin box like it held something precious. His name was Milo. He had soft, dark curls, round glasses, and a quiet way of watching everything before he said a single word. At school, Poppy, Daisy, Mia, Zoe, Ava, and Lily were already deep in their morning routine, swapping stories, arguing about whose turn it was to lead the line to class. When the teacher introduced Milo, a few kids waved, someone said hi, and then everyone went right back to what they were doing. Nobody meant anything by it. That's just how new kids sometimes disappear into the shuffle. At recess, while the girls played their usual game of freeze tag, Milo sat alone under the big oak tree, carefully arranging twigs, pebble, and leaves into what looked like a tiny house. Roof and all. Days passed the same way. The girls played. Milo built. His tiny house grew into a tiny street. Nobody really noticed, except Lily, who kept catching glimpses of him out of the corner of her eye, always alone, always building something a little bigger than the day before. She still remembered being the only kid in her old class with glasses. How long it took before anyone treated it like it was just a normal part of her. She recognized that same quiet watchfulness in Milo. One afternoon, she finally worked up the nerve to walk over and say hello. She rehearsed the words the whole way across the playground, and then, just as she opened her mouth, a stray soccer ball came flying out of nowhere and knocked straight through the middle of Milo's tiny village, scattering twigs and pebbles everywhere. Milo's face fell. He just went very still, staring at the wreckage.
I am so sorry. Here, let's fix it.
They rebuilt it together, piece by piece, while Milo, quietly at first, then more easily, explained that this wasn't just any tiny village. Each little house was a place he'd lived before. Building them helped him carry his favorite places with him, just smaller. By the time the bell rang, Lily had a dozen more questions, and Milo had, for the first time in weeks, someone to answer them to.
You guys have to see this.
The next day, Lily brought her whole group over at recess. One by one, Poppy, Daisy, Zoe, Ava, and Mia crouched down around Milo's tiny village, eyes wide. Poppy added a tiny star-shaped pebble for a rooftop. Daisy suggested planting little clover trees. Zoe and Mia started collecting more twigs immediately, already arguing over whose house should go where. By the end of recess, the tiny village had turned into an entire tiny town, and Milo wasn't building it alone anymore. Weeks later, the little town on the edge of the playground had become the whole group's favorite spot. Milo's careful hands guiding 6 enthusiastic helpers, each of them adding their own tiny piece to somewhere that, not long ago, existed only in one boy's tin box. All it took was one person noticing, and in this story, that person was Lily. From that day on, Milo was not alone anymore. He had his tiny village, his pebble collection, and, most importantly, his dear friends that never left him alone. Good night, little Wonderlings. If you liked this story, subscribe for more stories. See you next time.